So you've all done your Baron Castine problems and turned them in, hopefully, since they're due. I have not had a chance to look at any of them yet, though I will go through them and correct them. But what I want to do is go through with you how um, that problem or that case should be approached from an accounting standpoint. So first of all, you have to establish that monetary unit, which is fairly obvious that it should be bushels of wheat, because that's the common denominator between all the different transactions that take place. So we can convert everything into bushels of wheat. Plows and can be converted, and supplies and fertilizer and all those different things can be converted. I guess the second thing you need to think about is that the rent, the value of the land, the Baron is turning over the land for one season, 1 year, to Pierre and Jules, and the land has a rental value, an annual rental value of 5 bushels of wheat per acre. So Pierre is getting 20 times 5, or 100 bushels of wheat equivalent per acre given to him by the Baron, and Jules is getting half that amount, 50 bushels of wheat. So that is a contribution of capital by the Baron, along with the other things that he gives to the farmers, to the peasants. So those things are capital contributions, and the farmers are going to spend that capital or use those resources to hopefully produce a return, to produce more than they were given. So that's kind of how you should be approaching this. And accounting is all transaction based, so we're going to record each and every transaction as it takes place. So if we were to look at, I'm going to look at Jules over here. Jules received 10 acres of land, which had a value of 50 bushels of wheat from the Baron. So the first transaction, and he hasn't used it yet. So at the time that he receives that use of the land, it's an asset. So he gets prepaid rent, which is an asset of 50 bushels of wheat. And Baron, the opposite side of that entry, remember we have debits and credits. The debit is an increase to an asset, and the credit is an increase to equity. He also received seed, and he received fertilizer, and he received an ox. And those are the values that are given. So each one of those is an equity investment by the Baron. So the Baron has made a 50 plus 10, 61, 101 bushel of wheat investment in Jules. And those are all assets. He then goes out and buys a plow for 3 bushels of wheat. So he gets a plow, an asset, and he gives up a piece of an asset called wheat inventory. He also uses wheat inventory. That wheat inventory is revenue. So he records, he couldn't give it up if he didn't have it, so he's recorded wheat inventory and revenue. He uses up the rent expense during the course of the year, so we have to adjust the prepaid rent to 0. So we credit prepaid rent and we call it rent expense. He pays the Baron a dividend of 30 bushels of wheat. That's revenue. He took wheat that he'd grown and he gave it to the Baron. So he takes it, increases inventory and records revenue, and then he pays the dividend out and reduces inventory. He has another 110 bushels of wheat that he has at the end. That's also revenue. And then he has used up the seeds, so his seed supplies go away. His fertilizer goes away, and then he records depreciation on the plow. The plow costs 3 bushels of wheat, but it lasts for 3 years. So he's used up 1/3 of the value of the plow. So we're going to record a depreciation expense, and we're going to reduce the value of the plow by recording accumulated depreciation. And then on the ox can last for 10 years, be productive for 10 years. He has received an ox costing 40 bushels of wheat, and he's returned an ox now 1 year older, so only has 9 years left. So once again, we've spread that 4 bushels of wheat per year, which is how much the ox is depreciating. So we've adjusted that. So those are the transactions, and the ones for Pierre are the same or similar. not quite the same. So once we've posted those transactions, we can create a trial balance. And let's go to Jules' trial balance. And by the way, all of these, this is an Excel spreadsheet and it's posted to your account, so you can open this up and see what the formulas are and see how I did this. So the balance sheet for Jules, oh, wait a minute, let's not go there. Sorry. I'll move this for a second. The trial balance for Jules looks like this. So, move this out of my way here. So we've got seed supplies. He started with 0. He received 10. He used 10. He has 0 at the end. Fertilizer, he started with 1. He used 1. At the end, he has 0. Wheat inventory, he created 30 plus 110 plus 3. He used the 30 to pay dividends and 3 to buy a plow. So his net at the end was 110. But he really grew 143 bushels of wheat, of which he used 33 for various things. His prepaid rent started out at 50, but at the end he's used that up, a year's worth of rent, so he has none left. His ox was 40, and he still has the ox at the end, but the ox is worth a little less for bushels of wheat depreciation, so the net for the ox is 40 minus 4, or 36. The plow he paid 3 for. He's used up 1/3 of its value, so he has -1 depreciation, so the net value of the plow is 2. So at the end, what he turns back to the Baron is 140, the equivalent of 148 bushels of wheat. He doesn't owe anything to Fyodor, and the Baron provided equity of 101 bushels. He received dividends of 30 bushels, and he has current earnings of 77 bushels. So he has a total liabilities and equity of 148. Balanced 148 and 148. The income statement for Jules is 143 in revenue, so 30, 110, and 3, 143. His expense, $50, 50 bushels in rent expense, 5 bushels in depreciation expense, 10 bushels in seed expense, 1 bushel in fertilizer expense. Didn't have any loss on the disposable plow, but his compatriot did. So he had total expenses of 66, and 77 is his net income. So this 77, we've posted all these entries which all balance. The 77 moves up to current earnings, which is a retained earnings account. So that's the 77 goes from here up to there and becomes part of the balance sheet. So these are the earnings. 77, which becomes retained earnings. This is dividends, and this is the Baron's equity. So that's your balance sheet. That's your trial balance, and I have the same thing for Pierre. So you can look at Pierre's too. So now let's look at how we break this down into financial statements. There's a balance sheet for Jules, which looks like this. He has no seed supplies left at the end. This is the balance sheet at the end of December 31st, 1420. He's got no seed supplies. He's got no fertilizer. He has 110 bushels of wheat. He has a 36 bushel, an oxen worth 36 bushels. He's got a plow worth 2 bushels. So he's got total assets of 148. He has no liabilities. Doesn't owe anybody anything to anybody. The Baron paid in 101 bushels of wheat as capital. He received 30 bushels in dividends plus 77 bushels in as a negative, but the total earnings were 77 because dividends are not an expense. So he had earnings of 77. So total equity is 148, and that balances. So the Baron made a 101 bushel investment he received a 77 bushel return on his investment. So his return on investment is 76%. That's pretty good. Is that better than Pierre? Well, if we look at Pierre's balance sheet, all of the information is similar, though he had a different return and he had more investment. The Baron paid in $162 of equity, 162 bushels of equity of Pierre, received dividends, earnings, and so forth. So Pierre, the Baron had a 162 bushel investment, received a 103 bushel return, which is 64%. So Jules did a little better. He got a 76% return for the Baron. And in terms of bushels of wheat, the Baron invested 162 here and got a 64% return. Both of them pretty good. Rather than just putting his, allowing somebody to rent the land and taking the bushels of wheat he would have gotten there, he did substantially better than that because he invested that and got a better return. I've also prepared an income statement for Jules and Pierre. So there's Jules' income statement: revenue minus rent, minus depreciation, minus seeds, minus fertilizer, no loss on the disposal of the plow, 66 bushels expense, 77 bushels of income. So we've taken transactions, posted the transactions to a trial balance, taken that trial balance and converted it to a balance sheet and an income statement, and then compared the performance of the two peasants on a return on investment basis for the Baron, and the Baron did a little better with Jules than he did with Pierre. Both of the peasants did a good job for him. He did much better investing in the peasants than just renting his land, but Jules did a better job than Pierre. So that's kind of the how you go about approaching this. I will definitely mark up your papers and comment on what you did and give you some direction, but this should tell you how the right way to do this is from an accounting standpoint. And the point is, if I do this way, I can compare Jules and Pierre, and I can tell the Baron who did better. I haven't looked, but usually students do how much did they produce per acre and all sorts of different things. But this gives you a financial report of return on investment. We know exactly what the Baron invested, and we know exactly what he got back. So hopefully that helps you understand why we do accounting. I mean, it's scorekeeping, and this is scorekeeping that gives you a good result. So that's kind of the solution to the problem, and hopefully that's useful to you. Thank you.